Hello, my pretties. What's up? It's the Lion Queen here. Welcome to episode 263 of Shows and Pretties. And today in this episode, we're going to be reviewing another Stephen King film, but this one is called Salem's Lot. This is also known as Salem's Lot the movie, Salem's Lot the miniseries, or and Bloodthirst, whatever you prefer to call it. Now, this series, Salem's Lot, is a part two horror miniseries adaptation of the 1975 horror novel Salem's Lot by Stephen King. So, this was directed by Tobe Hooper, starring David Soul and James Mason. So, this is a pretty interesting concept. Like it kind of reminds me of a zombie outbreak. This movie kind of reminds me of the zombie outbreak, with citizens turning into vampires, but like the whole aspect of, people turning to zombies. This is kind of almost like that, but except this is done with vampires. I mean, it's pretty cool. Instead of a zombie outbreak, you got a vampire outbreak pretty much. So, this takes place at a church in Guatemala. A man and a boy, Ben Mears and Mark Petrie, are filling small bottles with holy water when, of course, one of the bottles begins to emit an eerie supernatural glow. Muir tells Mark that they're found us again, knowing an evil presence is nearby, and they decide to stay to fight it. So, this I'm going to basically review this because since this is two episodes or two parts of it, for one, and two, I will say right now that I'm going to be basically reviewing this and spoil pretty much everything about the movie, especially for those who haven't seen the movie in a really long time and for those who would like a refresher. So, yeah. So, anyways, if you don't want to hear spoilers, I highly recommend you click off this video right now. So, anyways, this, years earlier, Mears, a successful author, returns after a long absence to his small town of Salem's Lot in Maine. When he Mears attends to write a book about the Marston House, an old obnoxious property on a hilltop, which has a reputation of being haunted. Attempting to rent it, Mears finds that it's already been purchased by another new arrival in town, a mysterious Richard Stracker, who is in the process of opening up an antique shop. Off is mentioned, but has never been present in a business partner, Kurt Barlow. Instead, Mears moved into a boarding house in the town run by Ava Miller, and he eventually develops a romantic relationship with the local woman, Susan Norton. So he befriends with Susan's father, Dr. Bill Norton, and reconnects with his kindly former schoolteacher, Jason Burke. Mears tells Burke that he feels that the Marstein house is somehow inherently evil there, and of course, he recalling that its original owner, Hugh B. Marston, have implied to have been, well, a child predator who unfortunately takes their own life there. So Mears further recalls a traumatic childhood incident which he broke into the house and there saw Hubie's ghost. So after a large crate is delivered to the Marston house one night, the townspeople begin to disappear or die under strange circumstances. So Mears and Stracker, the main suspects that they're both new in town, but eventually it becomes clear that the crate contains Stracker's business partner, Kurt Barlow, an incident vampire who has come up to Salem's Lot after sending a Stracker to make his way for his rival. So Stracker kidnaps a young boy, Ralph Glick, and is offering to Barlow while Barlow kills kills a local retailer, Larry Crockett. The Glick boy then returns as a vampire to claim his brother for Danny. So after his funeral, the undead dead Danny inflects a gravedigger who happens to be Mike Ryderson and attempts to prey on one of his school friends. Mark Petrie, however, Mark is a horror film buff and manages to repel Danny with a cross. So, as the vampirism spreads, Mears, Brooke, and Dr. Norton gradually realize that what is happening to the town and he attempts to stop it. However, Mears gets attacked by Ralph and Danny's presumed dead mother, for Marjorie Glick, after she revives a mortician's table. But Mears out defends himself using a makeshift cross. However, Mark's parents are both killed by Barlow. Although Mark escapes through the assistance of the local priest, Burke, however, suffers through a severe heart attack following the encounter with the newly vampirized Riderson. So, while seeking revenge for his parents' death, Mark breaks into the Marstein house and can see a concerned Susan, who eventually follows him inside. So both they get captured by Stracker. Later, Mears and Dr. Norton, when they enter the house, the two Strackers and kills Norton by impaling him on a pail of antlers before himself fatally shot by Mears. So after Mears had freed he'd Mark and Barlow's coffin in the cellar, they destroy him by driving a stake through his heart, feeding the other vampires in the house. The infected townsfolk, the two set fire to the Marston property and they leave. Although Susan is nowhere to be found, the house, while it burns, the wind then carries a fire towards the town itself as he and Mark drive away from Salem's Lot. So Mears then comments that the fire will drive all the vampires away from their hiding places and purify the town from the evil as engulfed in the flames with it. So the story returns later to Mears and Mark at the church in Guatemala 2 years later, and it becomes clear that they are on the run from surviving Salem's Lot vampires, and that the bottles of holy water glow whenever a vampire is nearby. Realizing that they've been tracked down yet again, Mears and Mark return to their loggings things to collect their belongings. So once there, Mears finds Susan lying in his bed, now a vampire. She prepares to bite him and he leans down to kiss her, but instead, then Mears drives a stake down to her heart and destroys her. So grief stricken Mears and then leaves with Mark, knowing that the vampires will continue to pursue them, and thus how the movie ends. This is a pretty good story. I personally really enjoy this. This is a really great story. Now, it's a pretty awesome story. I personally really enjoy this, even though it's a pretty good Stephen King film. So, of course, they started filming sometime around July 10th, 1979, in Northern California, in the town of Ferndale, with some scenes filmed at Burbank Studios, and officially the filming ended near the end of August of 1979. So it is a pretty interesting concept. I personally really enjoyed it. It's a really good it's a pretty good movie. I personally really enjoyed it. It's a really great story, and although there is a sequel called Return to Salem's Lot, which is a sequel to the 1979 miniseries. However, though, I will say right now that there is pretty much a remake of it that came out in 2004. But however, though, in the Return to Salem's Lot, pretty much it pretty much is you know the remake of it is I saw the remake of a bit of the remake of Salem's Lot that came out in 2004, and the plot of it wasn't really that great, and I didn't really like that remake so much. But I mean, yeah, that's just me though. But I prefer the original Salem's Lot. So the return to it though, it has a different different plot line. Like it's kind of almost like the exact same thing. However, though, the ending involves the sun rises in Salem's Lot, and pretty much the remaining vampires that are around were burnt alive. They've got new cast and stuff, etc. So the sequel, Return to Salem's Lot, I do personally really enjoyed it. I personally thought it was a good sequel, although I haven't reviewed the sequel yet because I haven't, seen the movie in a really long time, but I prefer the first Salem's Lot movie. I mean, it's a pretty interesting concept with, vampires. Like, I mean, you don't always need to have zombies to make something like a zombie apocalyptic movie, but with Salem's Lot, you got vampires that are playing the roles of zombies somewhat, if that makes sense. I mean, it's not really entirely no the best Stephen King movie I've seen, but I have seen better ones. But this one is definitely a pretty good one. So, with that being said, I personally really recommend Salem's Lot. Now, the Return to Salem's Lot, I'm kind of mixed reviews on that one because I haven't seen the movie in a long time. But I can definitely say I may consider reviewing the sequel, but not going to guarantee it right now because I haven't seen the sequel in a long time. And plus, I've always liked the first Salem's Lot. I thought the first one was pretty good. So, with that being said, and that being the case, I personally really enjoyed it. It's a pretty good story. So, yeah, in all due reality, I personally really thought it was a good story that involved, Salem's Lot, with the vampires and stuff. It's really amazing how, Stephen King can use something like almost like a zombie outbreak. But mostly in Salem's Lot, it's a sequel, but, it was like a few years after the first one came out. Now, I have to say the remake of it is absolute shit. The remake of Salem's Lot is absolute shit. So, I don't recommend you watch the remake of it because I saw the remake once. It wasn't really good. But like I said, this is just my opinion, and if you disagree with me, that's fine too. You don't have to, sit there and like it if you don't. And here's the one thing: if you don't like this movie, I respect your opinion. If you don't like Salem's Lot or the sequel or even the remake, or if you like the remake, I can respect your opinion too because, I understand not everybody is going to like or dislike what I like or dislike, but yeah, it's just what it is. Now, I recommend the original Salem's Lot movie? Yes, I do. I highly recommend this next Salem's Lot movie. It's a pretty good film, really well made. I personally enjoyed it and I personally really thought it was good. So, with that being said, and that being the case, I personally really enjoyed it. So, with that being said, and that being the case, I personally really have to say it's a pretty good film. So, with that being said, like I'm going to say right now, this is just only my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these movies. Now, I will consider maybe reviewing Return to Salem's Lot, but right now I'm just not going to review it right now because I have not seen the movie in a long time. So yeah, I might consider reviewing it, but like I said, I no guarantees. So with that being said, that being the case, I'm gonna go ahead and basically wrap up this review. So I recommend the original Salem's Lot. It's a pretty good movie that Stephen King wrote based on the book. So it's pretty good. I mean, Stephen King wrote the book, and the movie is actually pretty good. So I recommend you guys check out Salem's Lot if you haven't. It's a pretty good film. So I don't recommend the 2004 remake of it because I just really didn't think that was any good in my eyes. But I personally have to say that the sequel to Salem's Lot, the original, was a lot better than the remake of it. So anyways, what did you guys think of the Salem's Lot movie? Do you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this movie a lot better? Like, do you like the sequel? Do you like the remake? Do you like the original? What do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comments below because I personally would like to hear what your opinions are. And as always, if you're interested in following my DeviantArt page, you are feel free to go follow me on DeviantArt. Link to that will be in the About section of my channel. Also, if you want to go follow me on Twitter, you are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter up there as well. Link to that, as well as my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, will be on the About page section of my channel. So if you're interested in going to check those out, you are more than welcome to. So, I guess with that being said and that being the case, yeah, what did you guys personally think? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.